Good afternoon. You will need a pencil and a highlighter to complete this set of notes. It is a Thursday afternoon for me. I hope that you are having a great Monday night. We are going to do these two problems probably on sometime this week. So we're going to come back to these. Don't forget about them. But hopefully you have your highlighter by now. We're going to talk about spheres. We're going to talk about the surface area. The surface area would be the outside of the sphere. So the surface area of a basketball would be all of the leather around the basketball. The surface area around a baseball, again, the leather. The surface area around the earth would be all the water and all the land. So it's all the outside of the shape and not including the inside of the shape. And then we're talking about volume as well, which we've been talking about. Volume is what's inside the shape. Okay, so first we're going to talk about a sphere. A sphere is like a 3D circle. The technical definition, a sphere is a set of all points in space equidistant from a given point. So all the properties for a circle actually apply to a sphere. You're going to learn those words again. That point is called the center of the sphere, just like you have a center of a circle. You still have a radius of a sphere, and it goes from the center to the A point on the sphere, so to the edge. And then there's also a chord of the sphere, which goes edge to edge on the sphere. And then last is a diameter, which is a type of chord, and it contains the center. So make sure you know those words. They should already be on your notes. If you wanted to go through and highlight those, you can. Whenever you break up a sphere in half, it's called a hemisphere, which you should have heard before. For all of my sane students who are not flat earthers, who actually believe and know that the world is round, we have a bunch of hemispheres. We've got the eastern and western hemisphere, and then we have the northern and southern hemisphere. So this also applies to the real world that we live in. The surface area formula is 4 pi r squared. So you want to write that down, 4 pi r squared. So remember, this is called surface area. So S stands for surface area. So remember the word area. Whenever you think of area, you should think of squared, like inches squared, centimeters squared. So if you notice, there's a square in the formula, okay? To understand where this formula comes from, they took apart a baseball. So if you see, we have a baseball here. It's made up of 4 circles. If you were to look at it, it's got this one. I'm not going to be great at drawing, but you get, yep, beautiful circle, another circle, and then a 4th circle. So it's made up of 4 circles, hence the 4, so 4, and then pi r squared is the area of 1 circle. So it's 4 circles. So finding the area of 4 circles. So we are going to do our first 2 examples. We can start by writing the formulas. When I write the formula, I actually write SA because it is a bit simpler. So the only thing you need to know is the radius, which they have labeled here. The radius goes from the center to the edge. So we will plug in the radius, which is 8 squared. So 8 squared is 64. Then I would just go ahead and go into my calculator and type straight across. 4 times 3.14 times 64. And we get 803.84. So it's still area, surface area, so it's actually inches squared because it is surface area. Letter B, we're giving something different, but we're still trying to find the surface area. The formula for surface area is 4 pi r squared. They gave us the circumference. Okay? They gave us the circumference. So if you remember, there are 2 formulas for circumference. Circumference equals pi times d or circumference equals 2 pi r. Those were the only two for circumference. So if you look at these two formulas, as in the surface area and the circumference formulas, you're going to find that one thing is in common, and it is the radius. The radius. So if we're given the circumference formula, we could find the radius to plug it in to our surface area formula. So instead of circumference, we're actually going to write in the circumference formula, because if the circumference equals 2 pi r and this circumference equals 12 pi, then we can set these two things equal to each other. So I'm going to do that over here. 2 pi r equals 12 pi, because they told us the circumference equals 12 pi. We just plugged in 2 pi r for the circumference, because this is how you tell the length of the circumference. So if we're solving for the radius, 2 pi is multiplying times r. So the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So we're going to divide both sides by 2 pi. You really shouldn't reach for a calculator here, because we're going to get that the radius is equal to, the pi's cancel out, 12 divided by 2 is 6. You don't circle that. That's just what we were searching for to plug into our surface area formula. So that's what we're going to do. 4 pi times 6 squared. So we're going to square 6. 6 squared is 36. We're going to type in 4 times 3.14 times 36, and you should get 452.16, and it would be feet squared. All right, we're going to turn. Finding the diameter if we're given the surface area. So in our problem, we have the surface area over here. We're going to do exactly what we did before in the last problem where we had solved the radius. If the surface area, because again I write SA, it's just easier for me to remember. If you want to write S, it's fine. But the surface area equals 20.25 pi. Instead of writing surface area, we're going to plug in the surface area formula, which was 4 pi r squared. Because if we found the radius, we can very easily find the diameter. So we are going to look at this left side. The left side, we have 4 times pi times r squared. So the opposite of multiplying by 4 pi is dividing by 4 pi. So then r squared is all that's left on the left side. On the right, the pi's will cancel. We'll divide 20.25 divided by 4, and we get 5.0625. Just keep it in your calculator. You don't want to clear it, so you can have the exact number, the exact value. We want to get r by itself, and it's currently being squared, so we're going to take the square root, because that is the opposite. So the radius is 2.25 centimeters. So to find the diameter, we're going to multiply that times 2. So we get 4.5. So the diameter equals 4.5 centimeters. At any point in time, you can always pause if I'm going too quickly. Please remember. That brings us to the last portion, which would be volume. The volume of a sphere. It's actually a little bit harder to find, but I'll show you. The formula is right here. Volume is 4/3 pi r cubed. So remember volume, because that's what we're finding is volume. Volume, you'll often have the cubed. So that's how you can remember this formula has the cubed. So you'll want to write that in for the volume of a sphere. All right, so find the volume of this soccer ball. So I'm going to write the volume formula, 4 over 3 pi r cubed. I'm going to tell you right now, the most common mistake is not putting a cubed. Someone's going to do it. I hope it's not you. So make sure it's a cubed up there and not a squared, because if you put a squared, you're not going to have the right answer. So I hope I'm hypnotizing you with this ugly red thing, okay? Don't forget the cube. Anyways, so they gave us the radius, 4.5. So that's what we're going to plug in for the radius. You might need to do a little bit of calculator work along the way instead of just typing everything all at once, because 4/3 is a repeating decimal. This is equivalent to 1.3333333 forever and ever and ever. If you round it too early, then your answer is going to be off. So what I suggest is plugging in the radius first, which here we said 4.5. So maybe I would find 4.5 cubed first. So you're going to do 4.5 times 4.5 times 4.5, which is not a pretty number, 91.125. So what I would type in first, I would clear it. I'd write it down like this. I would type in 4 divided by 5. So I would be typing in 4 and then the division bar, sorry, not a 5, 4 divided by 3. And then I hit the equal sign. Keep it in your calculator, whatever number you get. Okay, you're going to get, I just told you, you're going to get 1.3 repeating. Okay, don't clear your calculator. It'll look like this. Then you're going to multiply that by 3.14. So hopefully you're doing this with me. You should get 4.186 repeating. Now's the last step where you multiply by 91.125. This is the exact answer, and look at that, already rounded for us to 2 decimal places. We get 381.51, and it would be inches cubed because it's volume. All right, we got 2 more examples. The surface area of a sphere is 324 square centimeters. Find the volume of the sphere. So the surface area, if you remember, is 4 pi r squared. And we're going to want to find the volume. And volume is 4/3 pi r cubed. Another way to remember is that it's a 3 and a 3, if that helps. The cube will have those 2 3s. So what they have in common will be, again, the radius. So we're given the surface area. If we found the radius given the surface area, we'd plug it into the volume. So instead of saying surface area, I'm going to plug in the surface area, which is 324 pi. And the surface area equals 4 pi r squared. And our goal is again to find r. Currently r is being multiplied by 4 pi, so we're going to divide by 4 pi. So again, you really shouldn't be reaching for the pi 3.14 at all, because what's going to happen to our pi's is that they're going to cancel. The only thing that you should type in is 324 divided by 4, which is 81. The last step is to take the square root, and I'm sure you can already kind of tell where the answer is going. Our radius is 9. Now that we know the radius, we're going to plug it in for the radius in the volume formula. So volume equals 4/3 pi times the radius cubed. So times 9 cubed. So go ahead and type into your calculator 9 times 9 times 9. We want to find that out. 9 times 9 times 9. It's not a pretty number. It's 729. But we will be okay. So again, the process, you want to type in 4 divided by 3. So I'm going to write it again. You're going to type in 4 divided by 3, which again, it's going to give you that repeating decimal, 4 divided by 3. You want to keep it that way because that is the exact number. Then you're going to multiply it times 3.14, and then multiply that by 729. It is a fairly large number, so after we multiply by 729, you should get 30,052.08, and since this is volume, it's going to be centimeters cubed, or cubed centimeters. We have one more to do together, and it's a composite solid. Composite again means that there's more than one shape. So this one looks like we have a cylinder on the outside and then a half circle cut out on the inside. So we're first going to need to find the volume of the outside. Okay, so volume for a cylinder is a type of prism. So that would be area of the base times the height. So area of the base times the height. So again, the base is a circle. So area of the base, we're going to do pi r squared, and then times the height. The radius is 2, so we're going to plug that in, pi times 2 squared. And the height of the whole cylinder is also 2, so times 2. So we're going to type all this in our calculator. 3.14 times 2 squared is 4. So times 4 times 2. And the overall volume would be 25.12. So if none of this were taken out or cut out, the answer would be 25.12. But some of it has, and it is a half a sphere. So it's half a sphere. Keep that in mind because at the very end we will need to take half. Okay, so I'm going to move everything up so I have some room. We don't want to forget this number, the 25.12, because we're going to end up subtracting from it in a moment. But first let's find the volume of the sphere. So you're going to do 4/3 pi r cubed. The radius of the circle is from here to here. It will be the same on the top and the bottom. So the radius is 2. Pi times 2 cubed. So 2 cubed is 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. So go ahead and type everything in again. 4 divided by 3 times 3.14 times 8, which would be 33 point, we can round now, 49. But that is for the whole sphere, because if I tried subtracting this from this, we're going to get a negative number, and there's no such thing as negative volume. So we're going to take half of it because it's half a sphere. So go ahead and divide that by 2. And you get 16.7, we'll say 5. 16.75. So we're going to take those two numbers, the outer cylinder, which is 25.12, and we're going to subtract it, 16.75. So our final answer, the whole volume, is 8.37 inches cubed.